Are cigarettes a drag on young people's health? Here's the thought for this episode.
If you are familiar with smoky scenes, buy tobacco or use cigarette machines, let's hope a law stubs it out to smithereens, especially if you are still in your nicotines.
I'm Clergyman Pete. Here is business from Mark with me as ever. Now, what's this all about then? What are we particularly concerned about smoking teenagers?
Well, I've never smoked an entire teenager, but what I would say is that the idea of a young person smoking is completely appalling. Now, I think the thing here is that many people through the years, through the decades, have used science to show that smoking is bad for your health, folks. Nobody's too surprised. But what is surprising is the fact that a lot of young people are actually still smoking. Now, what's interesting is a recent study showed that actually young people really between like the ages of 18 to 24-year-olds, 1 in 9 of them are actually smoking. Now, that's according to the Office of National Statistics. But Clergyman Pete, I ask you this. Even though that we know that smoking is bad for you, people are still selling cigarettes to young people who are at a teenage age. Now, the government is actually proposing that actually we change the policy and actually raise the limit for those who can actually purchase cigarettes. But let me ask you this. Is it really going to work?
Well, I don't think it's going to work as in there will be an exact obedience of the law and that everything will fall into place. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not sure whether anyone expects that to happen, I have to say, including government ministers. Other methods of controlling behaviour that's unhealthy, trying to get people of a certain age, for example, to not buy alcohol, is done in this way. You have a certain age where you say they're not allowed to buy alcohol. You know that a little bit under they might get away with it. For example, in a shop they might say you can't buy alcohol if you're under 18, but we check to see if you look under 25. So you put the age up higher to make sure that there's a bit of a buffer so they don't decide when they're younger. As to whether you could keep on increasing the age and eventually no one could buy it, as has been suggested, could buy cigarettes, I'd have a problem with that. Just people's freedom to do as they want with their own.
Well, freedom to do as you want, but I mean, here we go. The thing about smoking is it's not just about your own personal health, is it? It's also about the issue of passive smoking. Now, I know that many people will debate this as to how much it truly affects you, but I think if you're in a closed environment, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a young person or more mature, you are going to be affected. There's the smell, the nicotine that's on your clothes, on your skin, etc. Now, of course, obviously in the United Kingdom, the law stated that you couldn't actually do that in a public place, such as, say, for example, an office, or as some people have now banned, obviously, in restaurants, pubs and clubs. But the thing here is, I find that the goal that the government has set is somewhat ambitious. They have said that they would like to have a smoke-free England by 2030. Now, we're talking about less than really 8 years away. Is that really achievable? Now, I get that the fact that the government's thinking you just can't just do it overnight. One is, guess what? Cigarette sales bring in a lot of money. And
Yes.
That is something that, of course, many people have recognized. That is one of the reasons that actually there's been sort of slow decline over the decades. As you know, that banning cigarette advertising on television suddenly came into effect in, I think it was in the 1980s. And then as we went into the 1990s, they got more and more strict on which cigarette companies could sponsor certain sporting events. And then that was taken away. We do have, of course, obviously the other challenge is that some people will say Well, of course, the lack of cigarette advertising has opened up to other nasty habits such as gambling and drinking.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we seem to be suffering here as a community, Clergyman Pete. We
Yeah.
seem to like the vices.
Yes.
How do you stop, though? How do you stop teenagers from smoking? Is it just simply the thrill and the joy of smoking, or is it just something more around culture and
Well, I have
looking
to say,
cool?
that, never having smoked, neither of us having smoked, we're not been in a position to say whether it's enjoyable or not. Although
Mm.
people report to me that initially it isn't, but once you get used to it, it does become enjoyable and
Addictive.
calming sometimes after a stressful time or whatever.
Mm.
So there is the entertainment value, just enjoy doing it. There's the social thing of passing around the cigarettes, etc. But no, I think this is where I have a problem. The idea of wanting to control people. What can we do to stop teenagers doing this? Well, we want to make sure that people are making an informed decision. That is true, but whether if people try a couple of cigarettes, smoke a little bit, and then stop, that would be fine. The problem is that it's addictive.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is stop people getting addicted to something. Now, if that's the case, stop just putting a ban on selling it isn't necessarily the best way of doing it.
Mm.
You will notice that, in fact, there are lots of very addictive substances that are sold, not through shops, but through other methods, underground economy of other substances that are smoked and drugs that are injected and the pills that are taken. So if you ban the sale of tobacco, I do think it's a good idea, but there's more. There needs to be more to it than that. It needs to be made a lot more expensive.
Well, I know that that's certainly one of the measures that duties are certainly one of the things that the government is considering. But it's interesting, isn't it, that it doesn't matter how many statistics you throw out to the public in terms of deaths. Now, in 2019, it accounted for 75,000 deaths in England, and that's a lot. But it doesn't seem to stop people. Now, what I would say is that even though the duties year on year seem to sort of go up, or at least certainly over the decades, the price of an individual cigarette or a packet of cigarettes goes up, it doesn't stop people still purchasing them. So I think it's more a case of clearly there are certain initiatives that don't work, meaning you can put as much duty as you like on it. You can tell people that it's bad for your health. You can throw statistics at them, but it's still not enough. So is it more a case that we should think a little bit differently to say we're just not going to do it and we're going to ban it and actually stop people purchasing of a certain age? Is that the way? So is it a bit like the sort of cold turkey, really?
My opinion is that it's you need a multifaceted approach. Yes, you need to ban it, but as you've seen, say, by sales of other drugs, they as well as the nicotine drug from.
Well, there's patches, of course, and there's vaping as well. We haven't covered that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think vaping is necessarily the solution. I think that the people, but I do think, by the way, that people should be allowed to smoke. So the point I was making earlier, you don't want people to get addicted from an early age, and then they're not really making an informed decision. But if later in life you make an informed decision to smoke, I think you should be able to. That's my opinion. Just through freedom of choice, it's something you want to do. And I think that about other things as well. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I don't want to smoke, and I don't want people smoking around me. But that doesn't mean that I think that no one should do it. But this measure to stop younger people, I think, is right. Making it more expensive so that younger people find it difficult to afford it, making it illegal so it's harder to get hold of. And I think taxation. You see, there's nothing to stop you from taxing illegal sales. I think you should be, for example, they should be taxing the sales of cocaine and heroin, because you may not be able to catch the person in charge who's doing it, but you can tax it. And if you were to put that in place, I think it would make a huge difference. Suddenly, it wouldn't be profitable. I think people would be moving away, and the same would be the case with tobacco. So that multi-pronged approach, that would be my advice. Ban it, make it more expensive, and then tax people even when they sell it illegally.
Well, that's one approach. One last thought on this. Is it more a case of maybe doing it as like this idea of as almost a counterculture, in the sense that you having a cigarette in your hand is not cool? Should there be more of a campaign using, whether it be well-known celebrities or something, just to really emphasize to young people that actually it's not good for you. It's never going to be good for you. No matter what age you are, and is it tackling it at that level, at that sort of grassroots level, to sort of get them to see it early on? Because I think, again, we don't have all the statistics available, but those people who typically tend to be long-term smokers started young. It's very rare that you have somebody who has gone through their life, like us in our 105 years of age.
Yes.
We're not going to turn to cigarettes, are we? I mean, not many
like
people, when they get past their teens or early 20s, convert to smoking. It typically tends to happen when you're younger.
Yeah, that's true. And it gives the example of my own father, who did start smoking in his 20s because he thought having a pipe would make him look a bit more mature. He was already in the apartment that age,
yes,
a beard, and wanted to try smoking a pipe as well. He retained the beard, but tried smoking a little bit. Just didn't like it. So as you say, it tends to
smoke a beard.
He now just smokes his beard, as you say. Yes. So yeah, I you see, even though we're broadly libertarian here at Mark and Peter, certain things work better if there is a government, or it's sort of as a government, really. It's a whole society approach in which the government is involved. That's what I'd say with smoking.
Well, why don't we ask our listeners, what do they think? I mean, how many smokers have we got listening to our program?
Yes.
I'd love to hear what they're thinking about. And more importantly, how are they going about this? Are they going to carry on smoking, or what are they doing to try and stop themselves from smoking?
And would it make a difference if you saw your kids doing it? Let us know in the comments. You can just go to markandpete.com and leave a comment there. It's really easy. So thanks very much for listening. From Mark and myself, it's bye for now. Catch you next time.